I'm ready for war. I've been telling myself that I'm ready for war. I'm not following nobody. I'm representing this to the fullest.
Sasha Dink Pate, born March 10th, 2006. Today's feature was supposed to be ahead of the curve, a highly ranked high school prospect who made the rare decision to skip the traditional route, choosing to go pro early through the G League Ignite instead of stepping onto a college campus. At the time, it felt like the future: get paid, develop against grown men, and fast-track your way to the NBA. But somewhere along the way, that path didn't quite deliver what it promised. The exposure wasn't the same, the role wasn't clear, and the momentum that usually builds around top prospects just never came. And now, in a move that's starting to raise eyebrows across the basketball world, Dink Pate is headed to college instead of continuing on as a pro. Not as a freshman coming out of high school, but as a player who's already been through the professional system. And that raises a bigger question that goes beyond just one player. What happens when the path you choose doesn't work? Should you get the chance to go back and take the one you skipped? Because in today's game, that line between amateur and pro is starting to blur more than ever. And who knows what that does for the integrity of the game. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Dink Pate is a 6'8" guard from Dallas, Texas, who came into the spotlight as one of the more intriguing prospects in his class due to his size, versatility, and playmaking upside. He's from the 2023 class with guys like Stephon Castle, DJ Wagner, Bronny James, Ron Holland, Rob Dillingham, and more. Instead of following the traditional path through college, Pate made the decision to turn professional early, joining the G League Ignite program as a teenager, just 17 years old. At the time, the Ignite was viewed as a serious alternative to college basketball, a place where elite prospects could get paid, develop against grown competition, and prepare directly for the NBA. For Pate, it was a chance to get ahead, but once he got there, things didn't quite unfold the way many expected. Playing against older, more experienced competition, Pate showed flashes of potential, but consistency was an issue, and his overall impact never fully separated him from the rest of the pack. His numbers reflected that, and more importantly, so did the lack of buzz surrounding his name compared to other prospects who took the more traditional route. As time went on, the G League Ignite itself began to lose momentum, eventually shutting down and leaving players like Pate in an uncertain position. With his draft stock not solidified and no clear path forward through the pro ranks, Pate made a surprising move, committing to play college basketball, signing with the Providence Friars, essentially stepping into a path he originally chose to skip altogether. Stunt number 1, skipping the stage that builds you. Dink Pate made a decision that a lot of young prospects think about but very few actually follow through on. He skipped the traditional path. No college, no campus spotlight, no structured system built around developing and showcasing his game. Instead, he went straight into the professional world through the G League Ignite, betting on himself to grow faster against better competition. And on paper, it makes sense. You're getting paid, you're actually playing against grown men, and you're theoretically preparing for the NBA at a higher level. But what sounds like an advantage can quickly turn into something else when you're not fully ready for it. Because the reality is, college basketball isn't just about development, it's about visibility, identity, and momentum. It's where players build their name, establish roles, and create the kind of buzz that carries into the draft process. When you skip that stage, you're not just skipping games, you're skipping the environment that helps define who you are as a player. And for Pate, that mattered more than it may have seemed at the time. Instead of stepping into a system designed to highlight his strengths, he quickly entered one where he had to adjust quickly, often without the benefit of patience or a clearly defined role. And that's where things started to stall. Against older, stronger, and more experienced players, Pate showed flashes, his size, his ball handling, his ability to create, but those flashes didn't turn into consistent production or impact. There wasn't a stretch where he fully took control or separated himself from the pack. And in a system like the G League Ignite, where multiple prospects are all trying to prove themselves at once, it's easy to blend in if you're not clearly standing out through your play or your name. But beyond the on-court side, there's another part that often gets overlooked. College basketball gives players a stage to build it. National TV games, big matchups, fan bases, and storylines. That's where the narratives are created. That's where the players go from prospects to names people recognize. Pate didn't have that. So while others were building buzz and climbing draft boards, he was developing in a quieter environment that didn't amplify what he was doing. So while skipping steps might feel like getting ahead, sometimes those steps are the important foundation. And in Pate's case, skipping that stage didn't accelerate his rise. It may have cost him the very platform he needed to take off in the first place. Stunt number 2, the G League Ignite didn't deliver. When Dink Pate chose the Ignite route, he wasn't betting on himself, he was betting on a system that was supposed to change everything. Ignite was marketed as the future, a direct alternative to college basketball, where elite prospects could get paid, train in a professional environment, and develop against NBA-level competition. For players like Pate, it sounded like the perfect situation. Skip the middle step, go straight to the source, and come out more prepared than everyone else. But in reality, that system never fully lived up to what it promised. Because while the idea of playing against pros sounds like an advantage, it comes with trade-offs that don't always show up right away. With the Ignite, there wasn't a guaranteed spotlight. No packed arenas, no consistent national attention, and most importantly, no system built specifically around one player. You're sharing the floor with multiple agendas going on at the same time, while also fitting into a structure that prioritizes development over exposure. That might be great long term, but in the short term, it can be harder to stand out. And that's exactly what happened. Pate had moments, but that didn't translate into momentum. There wasn't a stretch where he became a focal point or a name that people couldn't ignore. And without that, it became difficult for him to build his draft stock. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about how you play, it's about who's watching, how often they're watching, and what they take away from it. And compared to college basketball, Ignite didn't provide that same platform. Then came the bigger issue, the instability of the system itself. As time went on, the Ignite began to lose traction, eventually shutting down and leaving players in a position no one really planned for. Now, instead of being part of a growing pipeline to the NBA, Pate was tied to a program that no longer existed, and with no clear boost to his draft position and limited visibility from his time there, the path that was supposed to elevate him ended up doing the opposite. So while the decision to go pro early was one thing, the system he tried to do it through didn't hold up its end. And when that happened, the risk doesn't just stay the same, it multiplies. Stunt number 3, you don't get to reset the timeline. At some point, every decision in a player's career comes with a level of risk. For Dink Pate, choosing to go pro early was exactly that, a bet. A bet that he could develop faster, stand out against better competition, and ultimately position himself ahead of his peers. But the reality is, not every bet pays off the way you expect it to. And when it doesn't, that outcome is supposed to be part of the journey. That's what makes the decision meaningful in the first place. Which is why the next move raises real questions, because now, after going through a professional system, after already taking that alternative route, Pate is stepping back into college basketball as if that path never happened. And that's where things start to feel off. Not because he's trying to find a better situation, but because the timeline itself is being reset. Think about what that actually means. You now have a player who spent time in a pro environment, learning how to train, how to prepare, and how to play against grown men, entering a space filled with players who are just beginning that process. The difference in experience alone creates an edge that goes beyond talent. It's not just about skill anymore, it's about understanding the game at a level most college players haven't reached yet. And whether people want to admit it or not, that matters. Then there's the bigger picture, because if this becomes normal, it doesn't just stop with one player. What happens when top programs start targeting former pros the same way they recruit high school stars? What happens when a team stacks multiple players who've already spent time in professional systems? At that point, you're no longer talking about college basketball as a developmental stage, you're talking about a second chance league for players trying to rebuild their value. And that changes the balance completely. There's also the opportunity side of it. A scholarship isn't just a roster spot, it's a chance for someone else to step into that role, develop and build their own path, not to mention get a free education. When that spot goes to a player who's already had a professional opportunity, it naturally takes away from someone who hasn't, and that's the part what makes this situation hard to ignore. Because at its core, this isn't just about Dink Pate, it's about what happens when decisions no longer come with consequences, and once that line starts to blur, it doesn't just affect one player, it affects the entire system moving forward. All in all, Dink Pate's situation is one of those rare cases where you can understand the player while still questioning the direction of the system. He's still young, still developing, and like any prospect, he's trying to find the best path forward. And with the G League Ignite shutting down and his draft stock not where he likely expected it to be, going to college gives him something he didn't have before: a platform, exposure, and a chance to rebuild momentum. But at the same time, that opportunity doesn't come without concerns. Because once a path is chosen, especially one that skips traditional development, it's supposed to come with both the benefits and the consequences. And when players are allowed to circle back and re-enter the system they initially passed on, it creates a gray area that didn't really exist before. Not just for him, but for what comes next. Because if this becomes a trend, then college basketball starts to shift into something else entirely. And once that shift happens, it won't be just about development anymore, it'll be about repositioning. And for a system that was already changing, this might be the moment where the line blurs for good. Salute, much respect to him finding an opportunity, but for these reasons, I think the system's growth is being stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth, and I'm out.